What are the bullies bullied from your school doing now? A few years ago, I read about a teen I went to school with who was shot and killed in self-defense by a store clerk he was robbing. That poor guy, I feel bad for him having to live with shooting a robber dead. One of ours is currently up on charges of criminal confinement, intimidation, and battery, so clearly the same thing they were doing in school 30 years ago. Isn't it strange that if no one deals with them at a young age they carry on their behavior as adults? Weird that. Last time I checked, he was arrested in our hometown for armed robbery and conspiracy to commit a felony. A couple of our bullies teamed up and decided to rob a local donut shop. Apparently, they committed some truly bumbling errors and were caught immediately and sentenced. The skills required to push around classmates don't seem to translate into the retail sector. I had to look her up, but it looks like she's married, sells MLM, and is constantly posting things like, "Girl, God is with you." I think that's worse than bullying. Years ago I ran into someone at a gas station who was pretty much a dong to me in high school. He was a firefighter now. He actually apologized for being an butthole to me. I just shrugged it off like it was nothing, but all I could think about was that scene with Buscemi and Billy Madison. Last I checked on Facebook a couple years ago, she is still a bully. We're not friends on FB, but she made public posts about wanting to beat another girl's butt. Still dramatic and petty, even in our 30s. Kinda sad honestly. Bring in your 30s and still acting that way really is sad. My uncle is a guardian ward for the state. He gets assigned by the courts to be responsible for a person's affairs if a person is unable to care for themselves. He acts in their best interest. He asked if I knew a guy from my high school and inquired about him. I told him he was a bully, untrustworthy and on drugs at the time. He said, this makes sense as he was trying to access his mother's money that was under his guardianship, since she was incapacitated. Unfortunately, it seems nothing's changed since high school. Me trying to weasel up a real whopper but still being half asleep. What a joke. They all had children together straight out of school, then seemed to swap partners and have more children. Now there is a whole bunch of them who all hate each other because they're all dating each other's exes and all the kids have half siblings all over the place. There's about 8 ex-bullies in this partner swap web and it's a mess. I still love watching all the Facebook drama it comes with though. LOL. Birds of a feather. He is a doctor now. Got a job as director at his parents' hospital at the age of 26. Some people have it set for life. Then COVID pandemic hit and it was business booming for private hospitals in India. So now they are building a bigger hospital. That's a way of life in India. You grease your way through a crappy med school and spawn crappy hospitals and get married to an equally crappy family and spawn little shitheads. You keep walking tall brother. Dead, accidental suicide. He drank too much and had an argument with his missus. He went home and threatened to hang himself. Had a diabetic dip and accidentally took himself out. His GF found him the next day and had to ring his family on holiday. Now that's a story. My bully hung himself in year 9. The teacher instructed everyone to write some nice memories about him. I couldn't and ended up on after school detention. Where you guessed it, we had to write something about him. I wrote 5 pages double-sided detailing everything he did to me for the last 7 years. I even named names of teachers and school administration who refused to do anything. I then handed it to the supervising teacher at detention, which made her cry. She marked me off for the remaining 2 weeks of detention I had received as she knew I wasn't bullshitting. No one writes 5 pages double-sided with the amount of detail I had put into it and they're bullshitting. 34 years later I still feel nothing for this guy. I do not hate him, I just wonder what was going on in his life to be such a freaking butthole. My bully hung himself in year 9. I just wonder what was going on in his life to be such a freaking butthole. Something pretty bad. Sorry he scarred you up on his way through it. My elementary school bully was shot right outside my window. I kid you not. Poor kid. He was only 17 when he died. I hold nothing against him and I wish his life weren't cut short so tragically. One was jailed or something similar for molestation. One moved because he got caught sending nudes to a furry girl. The rest are all kids that will never leave that crappy town. I haven't talked to him since I was 15. I'm 33 now, and I haven't seen him since I was 18. Out of curiosity, I googled him a couple years back. He's apparently married and has a kid, but I also found his Twitter feed, which was filled with nothing but profanity-laden tirades against sports teams. There was literally nothing else. And I found his LinkedIn page that said he was a shift manager at Starbucks. I actually think that's outdated. I know a lot of people who have very outdated LinkedIn pages, but I really do wonder, although frankly I don't care. Last time I saw him we ran into each other at a party, and he was sweating because I had a restraining order against him. I didn't really care as long as he left me alone, which he did rapidly. Incarcerated for assaulting his sister. Found a way to torture me to this day, being nowhere to be found online, so I can't even have the satisfaction to know their lives crap, haha. Frick them then and frick them now. Life's better just moving on, my friend. For reference, I graduated in 1987. One of the biggest bullies from school, who I lost touch with, and honestly didn't miss, ended up coming out as gay about 15 years ago. Turns out denying who you really are makes someone pretty angry. He's really cool now. Recently moved back to my hometown and ran into one of the old bullies. After some rough years he's totally turned himself around and distanced himself from the other buttholes. Super nice guy now who's working hard to make something of himself. He apologized profusely for being a dong and actually wants to be friends. And I'm down for that. We actually have a lot in common. This guy tormented in any class I had with him. For no reason. He'd look for something, anything, and focus everyone's attention on that as he made fun of me. In our 30s now, I have a good job, family. He works at the Subway down the street from me. Nothing wrong with working at Subway, but he didn't become the baller that he originally set out to be. Peaked in high school, grandfather by his mid-30s. He had a twin brother who was killed in a car accident. I've learned that life will cause these kind of folks more pain than I ever could. Well, my bully apparently passed away recently. We were best friends as kids, and then eventually he came to torment and demonize me. I hadn't thought of him in years until this post and googled. Sure enough, he'd passed away. As much as I hated him for tormenting me so, really saddens me that someone so young died. The biggest bully douche meathead, think Biff Tannen, is running a successful IT company as well as a clothing brand for shoots and giggles. Shouldn't be too far from being a multi-millionaire now. The guy that he used to bully completely lost his mind to the point his parents got him locked in a mental hospital for some time and got a restraining order against him. It's sad as he was one of those borderline genius who'd do calculus and geometry for fun, and was a sweet kid. So yeah, the whole PPL get what they deserve in life doesn't apply here. Luckily I didn't get bullied in school from like 13 onwards, but one guy in my area was a complete dickhead. He used to bully and try start fights with me and a few friends, even knocked some of one of the guy's teeth out by sucker punching him. From like the age of 18-21 I never saw him until I was working in town one day and saw him, homeless and looking out of his mind on drugs. I'm 29 now and still see him every now and then on the street in town. I try give him some change every now and then. Sometimes he recognizes me, other times he doesn't. I feel bad for him. Died of a drug overdose. Left a young kid behind. I ran into him once. He worked at Subway. Once again he took my lunch money, but at least I got a sandwich out of it. Last I heard, one ran a M-Lab. Another became a dealer for the other person. One is a customer of theirs, and the other is an RN working in a nursing home with 4 kids and a deadbeat boyfriend husband. Not sure if they actually got married or not. As for me, I now live in another state and work in the music industry, and I'm slowly working towards a career in graphic design and illustration. Keep up the good work. I looked up the worst for a few years ago. 2 are dead, auto accident for 1. Cancer for the other. One is living on disability as he is losing larger and larger pieces of leg to diabetes. One manages a car repair place. In prison for murder. Senseless crime against a defenseless elderly man that was trying to help him out, letting him do odd jobs and such. I realize this dude must have had an incredibly tough childhood as he was a bully from grade school until he dropped out in 11th grade, but I really hope his butt never gets out. Even his mugshot is freaking scary. Depends. Rich kids bullies became rich adult bullies. They never learned bullying was not something they should do, so they continue to bully whoever is around. Poor kids bullies became unemployed, got crappy jobs. Ironically, some of them are employed by rich bullies and now understand how being bullied feels. IDK and IDC, but I just knew of one that just works on his parents' farm he inherited. As the bullied, I became what I wanted to be, a scientist. Got a family and a house and working on a car I want next. You can finally get that Prius you always wanted. Mine is a caregiver who now posts lots of anti-bullying stuff. Fascinates me because she terrorized me to the point I changed schools. PS. Frick you Marie. Stumbled across his social media in the early 10s. At the time it was all positive posts about getting off age. He was even interviewed in a local news story about former addicts. A few months later he was back in jail on drug-related charges and has been since. Every now and then when I need to be put in a good mood I check his incarceration status online. Literally frick everyone giving you a hard time for this, lol. You do you. There was one girl who was kinda awful to me. She is on welfare, addicted to opiates. Several children from several deadbeat dads, still living in our hometown. What I saw from her most recently was she entered into a wet t-shirt contest at a small town dive bar and with maybe 6-7 other women, and they don't name who was last place, but she didn't place in the top 5. I saw some photos and they were jarringly trashy and hard to look at. Man, that is some freaking cask strength karma right there. Was bullied horribly in school, beaten up all the time, stabbed twice, now a published playwright. About to graduate from the best acting school in my country. Bully is in prison. For stabbings. Recently had a guy start at my work and after a few days I recognized him as my high school bully. I didn't recognize him because he just seemed like an anxious wreck. Anytime we spoke I was like, geez, this guy is so unsure of himself, and thought it was sad. Then I realized who it was. Because of being bullied I started MMA and ended up having quite a few fights and promised myself that if I ran into that guy I'd beat the frick out of him, but when I was faced with him I took pity on him and didn't want to hurt him. Actually felt kind of healing to let that go after so long. I didn't even realize it was a weight I was holding. There really weren't bullies in my high school, so the last time I was bullied was in middle school and I don't remember their names. One of these dudes I used to go to school with that always fricked with me is a dope fiend now. Dude asked me to help him out with crap and I hooked him up with food. I told him I'd only do it once and then he bothered me to help him out again and I told him no and he basically disowned me as a friend even though I helped him out once after he treated me like crap all throughout school. I think he's a dope fiend because he used to be fat and when he asked me for help he was much skinnier than the last time I saw him. No big loss for you with him not considering you a friend. They all were like friends but they started stealing each other's stuff, so one day I think one of them stole a phone and the other stabbed him. Mayo. 2 bullies that I know of. First died while drunk driving in his early 20s. Second is a felon living in a trailer with a M habit. The one and only fight of my life was when I was a junior in high school. A senior wheel called Kay was intent on harassing me every single second she could, along with her 3-person crew. I took her abuse the entire year until one day, Kay approached me in the cafeteria before school and started to draw her fist back to hit me. I beat the crap out of her and I never even knew I could fight. Kay ended up on H and then in prison for selling drugs. I hope they are all doing well. I hope that whatever caused them to need to do the things they did to others is no longer in their lives. I hope they are happy, better people. I want to give them all a hug or a high five and tell them I'm happy to see them. And a little part of me wants to kick them square in the nuts and ask WTF was wrong with you. Died this past spring and my only regret is that I was never able to give him the kick in the balls he deserved 1,000 times over. His obit says he lived to never cause harm to anyone and it makes me sick. The day I heard, my tears were a mix of happiness and relief and I don't give a frick how bad a person that makes me. A guy that used to bully me and act like hot crap moved to the city from our small town and then got shot in the face for trying to act tough. My bully, from what I've heard, is having legal issues for sexually harassing women. Meanwhile I'm working at Charles River Labs in the virology department. One of them finished interior design a few years ago. One of them finished med school a few days ago. They were really bullying me in the 9th grade and a bit in the 10th, but we've became friends over the last 2 years of high school and kept in touch a bit. Good ending. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.